Okay. Let's start with the simple example. What is SAP HANA? So people will ask many questions. What is SAP HANA? They don't know what exactly the SAP HANA is. They think that SAP HANA is related to SAP. Do I know SAP to know the SAP HANA? Is it a database? There are like many multiple questions into a people's mind, like the student's mind, what exactly the SAP HANA is. SAP HANA is a database and which is a in-memory database and which is different from other traditional databases. HANA means it's a high performance analytical appliance. It is a combination of software and a special hardware by preferred vendors. Yes, it is a database. Absolutely, it is a database. Now we have like almost 10 or 15 databases available in our market. Why do we require another database into the market again? Because all other traditional databases are disk-based databases and this is a in-memory database. In-memory database. So I wanted to take it little further into the details of HANA. What exactly the in-memory database and why it is most important in this perspective of this software industry in this point of time. Now we have like traditional databases which are SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, Sybase, which store the data in a disk as a file system. And when somebody wanted to analyze a huge volume of data, maybe around 2 trillion or 3 trillion data available in the database. So when you have to do multiple computations on that particular query, and it is very tough for a database to retrieve and do calculations based on the volume of the data. Why? Because let me explain you a small example. By that we can able to analyze why we have this database is most important in our thing. Now, if we take a small example of one table with customer, product, quantity and amount, somebody wanted to analyze, just give me like top 50 customers out of 2 trillion records of that small table. And in the traditional databases like SQL Server or Oracle, what it has to do inside the database is, first it has to calculate the sales, total sales amount of quantity and amount. That is the first step of 2 trillion records. And the second step would be, it has to sort all the data, complete 2 trillion records. And the third one, it has to identify top 50 records and present it. But there is a catch here. In our traditional databases, as I can prepare a small diagram of that. In our traditional databases, in SQL Server, I can say, data stored, as I said, data stored in databases as a file system. But in the CPU, we have processor, we have RAM, we have a disk. When data stored in a disk and the query runs through processor, from processor to RAM, RAM to disk, and it has to fetch all 2 trillion records as a batch processing into the RAM, and it has to take it to the processor to do the computations. And this transfer of data between disk, RAM and processor, this transfer communication between these three parts of the CPU is a high time taking process. So to process 2 trillion records in a traditional databases, it may lead for the simple query of top 5 or top 50 customers. It will take you more than 3 or 4 hours to fetch the data of 2 to 3 trillion records. But in the same manner, same record, same table, if we have data in HANA, the same query we apply onto HANA, The same answer you will get in a matter of seconds, maybe a 2 seconds or a 3 seconds. Now, you may be shocked that what is this much difference between 3 hours or 4 hours to 2 seconds or 3 seconds? Yes, absolutely, it is possible in HANA. In HANA, behind the scenes, the technology which HANA is developed contains 4 major parts. As I wanted to explain you, first one would be in memory. Second one would be columnar database, columnar table. And third one would be massive parallel processing. And the fourth one is data shrinking. So these 4 items, these 4 technologies inside the SAP HANA that makes different from the all traditional databases, and this is going to rule the market in the next 15 to 20 years because of these 4 technologies. As of now, in the market, SAP HANA is a giant. It doesn't have a competitor with the similar technology. So let's explain one by one. We have like 4 topics to discuss in detail. So what is in-memory database? So people talk about in-memory database and in-memory database. See, in-memory database means the primary storage of the data is in RAM, random access memory. Yes, you heard it right, random access memory. So it will keep complete data in RAM so that very close to the processor, so that the transfer between the RAM and the processor is very less, and the computation happens in a complex query in you can say on a fly, and gives you the high performance. So I can show you one more diagram which I prepared. As you can see, in an MS SQL server, we have a CPU, RAM, and a disk. That is the processor, RAM, and disk. Now, our 2 trillion rows table is located in a disk here. The transfer of data between disk to RAM and to processor, this is the time consuming process. Out of 100% query execution time, 90% of the time takes between the components transfer of the data. But in SAP HANA, as you can see, the complete data is located in RAM that is very close to the CPU, and the transfer between the CPU and the data, CPU and RAM is very high. So the computation takes very fast and it will give you the high performance. This is one technology is different from the other traditional databases. The second one we will discuss as a columnar database. So now, as of now, all the databases right now in the market, like SQL Server, maybe Oracle, or maybe DB2, whatever it is, all the databases stores the data in a row-based tables. So what is the row-based tables and what is a columnar-based tables? Now SAP HANA gives the flexibility to a user to create the database table in a row-based or in a columnar-based, but by default it is a columnar-based. So what is a columnar-based? Let me explain with one more diagram which I have created here, as you can see. See, in a traditional database, SQL Server, I compared to SQL Server. Here is the same table. We take the same table as a customer, product, amount, and the quantity. Now, the same table which we stores the data, it stores in a sequential continuous memory allocations as a single file in a disk. The data will be stored. And in HANA, the data stored in a columnar based as a single, every column as a single file. So what is the advantage of this? Means when you retrieve the data, as I said, SAP HANA, HANA is high performance analytical appliance. See, the word analytic means retrieving the data for analysis purposes. The main purpose of this HANA database is to retrieve the data as fast as possible to present in a very high performance way. So to retrieve the data, when you store the data in a columnar way, while retrieving, like most of the times when you query, let's go back to our previous query. Here we are talking about top 5 customers. Means we wanted the sales of the customers who did most. Means we want only customer name and we want computation of amount and quantity. So we are ignoring a product here. We are ignoring a product. So we don't want product. But in columnar database, what it does means, if you want only certain columns to be displayed with a conditions or a filters, it will take only those files to compute and it represents and presents the data to the user. So in the row based, when you query the same way, the same query, if you query in the row based, data has to search from here. It has to go all the way to the quantity and come back here, because the data stored in a file in a continuous location. See, if you want customers, it has to search whole 2 trillion records in a table. The time consuming to search whole 2 trillion records is massive compared to is in SAP HANA. It only search that particular customer column and that particular amount and quantity column.